Hello everyone, I'm Alex Dykes, and today we're out here in beautiful Canada taking a look at the all-new Lexus NX crossover. This is not only Lexus's smallest crossover in the United States now, but it is also the only turbo Lexus that Lexus has ever sold in this market. Now, with all the research and development going on with the engine under the hood that we'll talk about in a bit, I do expect to see this migrate its way into other Lexus products, most likely that Lexus IS in the future. Now, contrary to what you may have heard online, the NX is not a shrunken version of the RX 350, and neither is it a luxury version of the Toyota RAV4. In fact, this vehicle is 90% new, and the 10% that it does share with the rest of the Lexus lineup is confined mostly to that Lexus lineup, with the exception of the available hybrid drivetrain, which is also shared with the Avalon and the Camry, but more on that later. Up front, we have this Lexus signature spindle grille on the NX. Now, the NX is one of the first vehicles designed specifically with this grille and this whole design theme in mind from the very beginning. And as a result, it looks a lot more cohesive than on the larger Lexus SUVs. We have this Nike swoosh-like daytime running lamp right here that is divorced from the headlamp. It's something that you see in the Lexus IS as well. And all NX models in the United States will start out with standard LED low beams. Now, our particular model has the optional LED high beams, which do give you this slightly sexier headlamp looking module right here. You can probably see it in the camera as just sort of some beams of light, but the light module itself has some L themes going on it that mirror this Nike swoosh right here. Helping keep costs down, fog lamps are not standard on the NX, but you can get them on various option packages like our model is so equipped right here. We also have the optional parking sensors that are very well integrated into the front bumper. Now, over here we have this large Lexus logo right here that hides the optional radar cruise control system. The NX has a very attractive side profile. It's an awful lot more expressive than I expected out of Lexus, to be honest. In fact, overall, this vehicle I think is an awful lot more exciting than the traditional Lexus that we've come to know. Over here we have this character line that swoops all the way down and then rises as we go to the rear, and we have this relatively drastic sloping rear hatch glass right here. The sloping hatch glass is of course reminiscent of the Lexus RX, but very much like the RX, most of this sloping is actually due to the styling and the window line right here, because the actual roof of the vehicle is relatively square, really helping out that interior room. Up front, we have a decidedly front-wheel drive overhang, and that's versus something like the Mercedes GLK or the BMW X3, and that's the distance from the front part of the car to right here by the wheel well. Now, you will find something a little bit shorter in the BMW as well as the Mercedes, but this is about the same as you'll find in the Volvo XC60. Now, the Audi Q5 actually has a slightly longer overhang because of its engine orientation. Since I mentioned vehicle size, let's pop out the ruler and see where the NX slots in. This is not a Lexus Evoque, if you will. The Evoque is actually a foot shorter than the Lexus NX. The RX itself is about 5 inches longer, and if you take a look at something like a Lincoln MKC, it's about 3 inches shorter or so. Not surprisingly, of course, fractions of an inch separate the Lexus NX from the BMW X3, the Volvo XC60, and the Audi Q5. And of course, on the larger end of the scale, we have our BMW X5, Audi Q7, Mercedes GL, that sort of thing. They're all a decent amount bigger than this Lexus NX. The rear of the NX is quite expressive, and very much like the front, it's a little bit surprising for me coming from Lexus. We have these twin exhaust tips on all turbo models. If you get the hybrid model, we do have a slightly different bottom bumper cover right here with a hidden exhaust tip. One thing I'd like to point out are these rear parking sensors, which are very nicely integrated with the rear bumper. They stick out an awful lot less than certain other cars. We have these very attractive Nike swoosh headlamps, which mirror the treatment going on up front in the vehicle, and we have a very sloping rear hatch glass, very much like you'd find in the Lexus RX. Under the hood, you'll find the first turbocharged engine that Lexus has ever sold in the United States, and it actually is quite an interesting engine. This is a 2-liter direct injection 4-cylinder turbocharged engine. It uses a twin scroll turbo, and it produces 235 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque. What's innovative about this engine doesn't really give the NX 8 out of 10 points in terms of front seat comfort. We do have a multi-way power adjustable driver's seat with a 2-way adjustable lumbar support. We also have a tilt telescopic steering column with a decent range of motion. The standard seats in the XC60 are a little bit more comfortable than these. I also think the Mercedes GLK seats are a little bit more comfortable as well. Now, BMW's X3 seats and the Audi seats are a little bit less comfortable than this. However, BMW does offer that 21-way sport seat in the X3, and that is a decent amount more comfortable than this. In terms of comfort, I give the rear seats 8 out of 10 points overall. Our particular model has the optional power reclining and power folding rear seats. This is the most reclined position. My head's kind of over here by this rear glass, and this position is the most upright, which helps you square off that cargo area. They also power fold at the touch of a button either right here on the side up there by the driver or right there in the back of the cargo area. This front seat is all the way back in its tracks and relatively upright, and I have about 2 or 3 inches of legroom left right there. I also have about an inch of headroom left right back here behind this sunroof. Now the sunroof is optional in the NX, and it does cut down on front end headroom. Moving over to the driver's side, with the driver's side adjusted for me at 6 feet tall, I have about 6 inches of legroom left behind this front seat in this rear seat. Again, this other side is also electrically reclined as well. Now, if I move over to the middle seat, we do lose a little bit of room due to the sculpting of these seats, but I actually have about an inch of headroom left right here in the middle. This does give this car a decent amount of headroom compared to some of the competition. If you don't get the power recline feature, the rear seats still recline. It's just with a manual lever instead of the power button. No luxury crossover would be complete without a power-operated tailgate hatch, so we have one here, of course. It's operated either by a button on the remote, button right here on the tailgate lid, or a button on the inside of the vehicle. And the button on the inside of the vehicle will open and close it, which is a nice touch. Right here I have a roller bag. This is the largest size you can carry on a domestic flight, and you can fit quite a number of them right here in the cargo area. Now, I haven't seen official cargo size specifications for the NX, but it is, of course, a little bit smaller than the Lexus RX. Now, overall, the front and rear legroom and headroom figures of the NX figure quite well when you compare them to the RX, but obviously, since this is smaller than the RX, that difference has to come somewhere, and that's right here in the cargo area. Aiding in cargo carrying practicality, you will find some additional storage space right here under the load floor. So let's move this carpet out of the way and pull this handle up. And right under here is where you will actually find the tonneau cover. It nestles right in there in its own little slot. We also have some additional storage space right here in this foam divider, right off here to the side. Jack is over there, and we do have a donut spare tire right down there. This tonneau cover is of the hard variety rather than the roller variety. It snaps into the car, if I can get it in place right there. And then these little straps actually lift up to help lift this part of the tonneau cover out of the way when you open the rear hatch. It is, as I said, a firm tonneau cover, not a roller tonneau cover, so you can put certain items on top of it, but they can't be too heavy. As I said before, you'll find the power recline buttons for the rear seats right over here as well, and these are one-touch folding mechanisms, so you just press it once and the seat will power fold down or power fold all the way back up. Overall, the NX scores 8 out of 10 points in my exclusive Trunk Comfort Index. I really like the additional cargo practicality of the under load floor storage area. I also like the fact that we have a donut spare tire down there rather than a can of Fix-A-Flat. I think that the power folding rear seats are a little bit gimmicky in a vehicle that's this size. If the second row was farther away, then they may be more valuable, but personally, I wouldn't pay extra for those. I would just go for the manual reclining rear seat backs. We also have a subwoofer right here on the hatch, which helps not take up as much room in the cargo area. So a lot of cars put the subwoofer somewhere in the cargo area that takes up actual storage room. Lexus does put them in the hatch, which is a nice touch. Let's take a quick spin around the interior. As you can see, the consequence of that sexy side profile is somewhat limited rearward visibility, especially on the side blind spots right there. If we move over to the front seat, we do have two-way adjustable headrests in our model. Four-way adjustable headrests are optional. We also have height adjustable seatbelts for the driver and front passenger. New Lux imitation leather is standard on all NX models. We can get optional leather in the 200T as well as the hybrid models, but if you do get the F Sport, then you're limited to New Lux only. The door panels are all cast from soft touch injection molded plastics, and then they run a sewing machine over it to give you this real stitching on that injection molding. Real wood trim is optional on this model. We have soft touch plastics right here and then a soft touch armrest. You will find hard touch plastics lower on the doors as well as the dashboard, which is very similar to the rest of the competitors. Moving on over to the dashboard, we have the same stitching going on here in the soft touch upper, and then this is stitched pleather. These are actually pieces of pleather that are then stitched together to form this section of the dashboard. Because we have the ivory interior, we have matching dashboard components right here. Most of the other interiors, this is black. Below that panel, you'll find an extraordinarily large glove compartment here. It's large and it's also deep. I was easily able to put a digital SLR camera and an iPad in there without a problem. All models do come with an LCD nestled right here in the dashboard. If you don't get the navigation system, it is a 7-inch display only audio system, and ours does have the navigation option, which gives you a slightly higher resolution screen. Below the screen, we have our two large air vents, analog clock, displays for the dual zone climate control. Our particular model has the optional heated and cooled seats. Below the climate controls, we have this interesting little slot here. I'm not sure what that's supposed to hold, some small knickknacks. It is just a little bit too small for a cell phone. It tends to stick out just a little bit. We have our single slot optical player right here, direct access buttons for radio, media, track forward, backward, play, tune scroll button over here, power and volume. And behind this little door right here, you'll find the micro SD card slot for the mapping system. Below that, we have our drive mode select. This allows you to go from eco, normal to sport mode. Because it doesn't change the power output of the vehicle, it does change things like engine mapping as well as the hybrid mode if you're in the hybrid system. If you're in the hybrid vehicle, you'd have an EV mode button right here, traction control off button, This is that brake hold button, which does hold brake power. That is a very nice feature on this vehicle. We also have an electric parking brake right here. We have an auto mode, so that way when you put it in park, it automatically sets the parking brake for you. Right down here is the big difference that you'll find in the NX, and that is Lexus's first implementation of this touchpad controller. If you're familiar with Lexus Remote Touch, previously it was sort of a joystick-like affair. Now, if you don't get the navigation system, you have an iDrive-like knob right there instead. This operates very much like you'd expect it to in this system. It operates like a mouse. You just sort of draw along the screen using this control pad right here. You click the whole pad down in order to select something, and it does offer you haptic feedback. We have direct access buttons to the home, the menu, and a direct back button. You can also pinch to zoom in and out using finger gestures on this pad. You can scroll up and scroll down and scroll across as well. Overall, I find this a little bit more intuitive than Lexus's Remote Touch joystick-like controller, but I still think it's less intuitive than the same software with a touchscreen. Behind this traditional shifter, you find two large cup holders. We have a little armrest right over here for using the Lexus Remote Touch controller. We have kind of an interesting thing right here under this little hatch. It actually has kind of a mirror right under there so you can see yourself and, wave to yourself. But it's also a hidden compartment right there for a sunglass holder, because you don't find that up in the ceiling. We have a large center armrest here that opens to reveal an optional charging pad that does use the Qi standard for charging pad. Little power button there to turn it on and off. Various wireless devices do support this, and you can get sleeves for devices that don't support it. If we open this all the way up, you'll find your dual USB input on the navigation equipped models, single USB on the other models, auxiliary input, 12-volt power outlet, and a relatively deep center console. All models use essentially the same instrument cluster. We have a 4-dial arrangement right over here, tachometer, engine temperature right over there, fuel gauge, and our speedometer right over here. This large color LCD right in the middle acts as your trip computer, and it also gives you additional gauge displays depending on which version you're in. If you're in the F Sport, you can get a boost gauge as well as some additional oil pressure and oil temperature gauges. Right here we just get our fuel economy, our range, as well as an eco indicator, tire pressure, etc. You get navigation, directions, and instructions right there. You can control the audio system from that control panel as well. And you also have access to several vehicle settings. Right here we have our rear hatch on, steering assist on, sensitivity level, our eco on, etc. as well. Moving out, we have the power button right over here. We also have a standard Lexus 3-spoke steering wheel. It's a very attractive design. Looks very similar to the other Lexus wheels out there, except we have some new buttons right over here. This is sort of a menu button for that menu right there in the middle. Right over here you'll find your buttons for the infotainment system, voice command button, phone hang-up pickup button. We have dedicated buttons for our radar cruise control system, lane departure prevention system. This changes the screens on that little screen right over there. We have a back button, and you'll find the cruise control stalk right here behind the steering wheel. If we were in the F Sport model, you would get some additional shift pedals right over here on the steering wheel. F Sport is Lexus's appearance and handling package, and the NX, of course, gets that package as well. We have the F Sport grill right up here, which is sort of this squiggle line effect. It's kind of an interesting alternative to an egg crate grill. I think this is actually the most attractive front end option on the NX. We also get a lightly retuned suspension with unique wheels and slightly wider tires. These are 235s on this particular model, and the regular NX gets 225s. On the inside, we get much more aggressive bolstering on the front seats. That's the seat bottom cushion as well as the seat back cushion.